I think it's safe to say that we can all agree that fear makes us do foolish things. When we are scared or afraid or frightened, our judgment is clouded. We are unable to think as critically as we might have if we were not fearful or scared or afraid. Sometimes we make mistakes, make bad decisions, poor choices. This is true of probably all of us in here. Fear makes us do foolish things. The story I'm about to tell is a true story, and it does apply to where we're going today. I was 16 years old. My mom and dad were invited to a Christmas party with their Sunday school class, and it was on a Friday evening. And they left myself and my sister, who's about 8 years younger than I am, at the house by ourselves, which was not we're not party animals. Like, we were just going to sit on the couch and watch TV. So they had left. It's about 8:30 or so, and I decided, hey, I'm getting a little hungry, so I'm going to go upstairs to the kitchen, and I'm going to make me something to eat because I'm hungry. So I walked up the stairs, and as I was walking into the kitchen, I noticed through our living room, we had a window out to our front yard, and I saw that there was a car that had pulled in our driveway, and the headlights were on, and they were just kind of sitting there. And I was like, that's weird. Like, no one's supposed to be here. No one's supposed to be coming. We weren't told of anyone, we weren't told of anything. Like, that's weird. Maybe they're lost. Maybe they just have the wrong house, whatever. I tried to justify it in my head like that. And I just kind of went on the rest of my dinner-making excursion. Okay, so I go and I make dinner, and I turn around. I go to walk back down the stairs into the living room, and I see this car is still there. It's still in the driveway. The headlights are on. I'm like, that's just weird. Like, why? Who is that? I'm not going to go find out, but I'm curious. Like, who's in our driveway? So I walk downstairs, and I go to sit on the couch to eat dinner, and our doorbell rings, like our front doorbell. And at this point of the story, I think it's important that you know, and you should forgive me for this, maybe, I don't know. I grew up an avid horror movie fan, okay? So I don't know if you have seen any scary movies, but like 70% of them start with this plot, okay? It's at night, it's kids home alone, it's dark, and the doorbell rings, okay? So when the doorbell rings, based off my experience, that doesn't end well. So I have decided I'm not answering that door. I don't care who it is. There's no room in this inn. It's not happening. You're not coming into my house, okay? The doorbell rings, and my sister, who's seated beside me on the couch, she was 8. She's like, obviously, you answer the door when the doorbell rings. Are you going to go get the door? And I looked at her and said, are you going to get for real? No, I'm not trying to die tonight. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to answer the door. They're just going to ring the bell. We're just going to let it go. I ring the doorbell again. Obviously, she's getting a little flustered, like, this isn't polite or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not trying to go to jail. So, like, I don't care. Then somebody's knocking on the door. And we decide, okay, at least I need to go see who this is, okay? So if I recognize them, then I'll open the door and I'll make up some story about why it took me so long to get to the door. If I don't recognize them, I'll call the cops. Like, it's just weird. So I walk back upstairs, I go in the living room, and I peek through the blinds, like, because our little eye hole or whatever, like, wasn't working. It was, like, broke or something. So I, like, peek through the blinds. I'm, like, trying to see who's there. And I can't see. I can't determine who this is. I'm like, well, that's unfortunate. All right, so then I decide, okay, well, somebody needs to know this. So I call my parents. And I call my parents. They don't answer the phone. And I leave them potentially the worst possible voicemail message that a parent would want to receive at this time. So they're celebrating the birth of Jesus at somebody's house. And my voicemail goes, somebody's trying to get in the house now. You need to get home. This is a problem. Like, come home. I love you. Bye. All right, so that was where I left them. So I decide, okay, I need to continue. I'm not answering this door. So as I turn around to walk downstairs, I hear this individual walk down the stairs of our porch, and I hear their car door shut. I'm like, oh, I've won. Like, we're safe. They're going to go terrorize somebody else and leave us alone. That's fine. So I'm anticipating this car to back out of our driveway and leave. And they do not. This car pulls forward to the back part of the house where our garage door is, and the door beside our garage door is, and I lose it. Like, I'm freaking out. Okay, I go downstairs. My sister's like, what's going on? I was like, I don't know. We're about to be murdered. Like, I don't know what's happening right now. And I call my parents again, and I leave the same message, like, someone is trying to break in the house, come home now, I'm never going to see you again, hurry, let's go. Like, hang up. So, or like, I love you, bye, hang up, or something like that. So, the doorbell rings, the back, like on the back door. I'm like, is this the most like persistent serial killer ever? Like, leave us alone. Like, we're not coming to the door. Doorbell rings, and then I hear the door of the, like, beside our garage door open. And I'm like, number one, why is that unlocked? Like, why did we not lock that door? It was unlocked. I was furious. It's like, that could have been the thing right there. Like, we'll lock the door. So now they're in our garage, whoever this is. And I have to make a very significant decision. I remind you, fear makes you do foolish things. So I decide in this moment, as a 16-year-old, I now have to defend the honor of this home, okay? And either myself or whoever's on the other side of this door, somebody's going to jail. And like, I just need to own that because something's about to go down. So I go grab a weapon, which I decide is going to be a black wooden baseball bat that I have. I grab the bat, and my sister's like, are you a psycho? Like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm saving your life. That's what I'm doing, okay? So I get this bat, and I decide, okay, the lights in the garage are off. The lights in the kitchen are off, and I can't see whoever this person is who is now knocking on our door to get into the house. Okay, it's not going to end well. So I take my bat, and I walk up the steps, and I get to like a refrigerator, and I'm like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to peek out from behind the refrigerator, and I'm going to cut the lights on. And I'm going to see who this is at our door. And if I recognize them, fine, I'm going to be a little embarrassed, but I will get over it. If I don't recognize them, I'm going to charge the door with this baseball bat and scare them, hopefully, okay? So I cut the lights on, and I go to peek around the refrigerator. I've got my bat in my hand. And lo and behold, who I see is not Jason or whoever, like it's not a serial killer. It's my pastor's wife, Miss Cindy, who's a sweet senior adult lady, smiling, waving, as if none of what has happened on the inside of my house has traumatized me at all. Just smiling, hey, how you doing? And then with her right hand, she lifts up a homemade pumpkin pie. So I, with bat in hand, I never put the bat down. I go walk to the door, open the door, and let Miss Cindy in. About this time, my parents show up. And my parents go, oh yeah, Cindy did say she was bringing us a pumpkin pie. We just forgot to tell you. And I was like, I'm about to go home run derby on everybody here because no one told me that this was happening. I'm terrified in here. And fear will make you do foolish things. Fear is a very relatable part of the human experience. While your story might be different than my story, it's very likely that you can recall an event or an occasion or a time in your life when you were scared. And because you were scared, you did something silly, something foolish, you made a bad decision, a poor choice, or if you're really honest, maybe something that you deeply regret. Fear is a strong motivator. It's a part of the human experience we can all relate to. The second reason I tell you that story is because that position of fear is the same position of fear that we find a character that we're going to read about today in the book of Isaiah. Now our text, his name is King Ahaz. Our text is Isaiah 7:14, but it's not fair to just take Isaiah 7:14 and just talk about it out of its context. We've got to do a little bit of work to figure out what was going on around this time and around this narrative, around this verse, to see how much weight and significance this verse really does carry. Because it's more than just what we probably, where our minds first go. It's not that that's a wrong thought, it's just that there's more to the story. And in order to do that, we've got to do a little bit of work because, and I'm not judging anybody for this, most of us don't make it to the book of Isaiah in our yearly Bible reading plan. We're very ignorant of the book. It's considered prophetic literature, which can be difficult to read at times. It's a part of the Old Testament that we just don't really get around to that often. It's a major prophet, which means it's a big book, and that can be intimidating for us as well. So like, what's going on around verse 14 that then leads us to this proclamation in verse 14? Well, let me talk about it for a little bit. At this point in history, the kingdom has been divided, a northern kingdom and southern kingdom. The northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. Judah is led by King Ahaz. And King Ahaz, the Bible tells us, is the worst. He's awful. He's a terrible king. 2 Kings chapter 16 and verse 1 say that he did not do what was right in the eyes of the Lord. That he led the people of God further from God and deeper into their disobedience and their rebellion and their idolatry. At the time of this writing, the northern kingdom decides to build an alliance with a neighboring country with the intention to invade or overthrow the southern kingdom where Ahaz rules. And Ahaz is terrified. He's scared. And not only is he scared and he fearful, but in verse 2 of chapter 7, we find out that his people are scared and terrified and fearful. Verse 2 of chapter 7 says that they are so scared that they shake like trees in the forest when the wind blows. They're terrified of this potential upcoming war. And fear will make you do foolish things. Ahaz is on the precipice of making a foolish decision where he could choose one of two things. One is very clearly the right answer, but he's tempted to follow the other. At this time, God then sends Isaiah to confront him about this potential decision. And God reminds Ahaz through Isaiah, hey, listen, I'm going to deliver you. You don't have to be fearful. You don't have to be scared. You don't have to be afraid. I will deliver you from this upcoming war. Trust in me. Ahaz thinks of his alternate option, which is I can trust in man. I can recruit another army to go to war with me and we can fight. Rather than trust in God, I can trust in man. And then God, through Isaiah, says, listen, I'll even give you a sign. I'll give you a sign that you will be delivered, that I will deliver you from this enemy. And Ahaz goes, I don't want your sign. I don't need to know another sign. I'm going to get my crew together and we're going to go to war and we're going to be fine. And God goes, I'm going to give you a sign anyway. And it's the sign that we read in Isaiah 7 and verse 14, which again says this, therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. And behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and call his name Emmanuel. Now, one of the things that we can fall victim to when we are reading, especially prophetic literature, is when you hear that verse, there's a particular individual that comes to mind that it absolutely should come to mind, and we're going to get to him. But there's actually a direct application to Ahaz in the moment that Isaiah tells him this. It's not that Isaiah is just saying, hey, hold on for another 700 years and we'll be fine. He's saying that there's actually something going on in the immediate context historically that will help bring you relief and deliverance. There's a direct application to Ahaz's moment of great fear. Number one, Isaiah's prophecy sheds light on God's provision for Ahaz. And again, what seems to be in a moment of great fear for this rebellious, unrighteous, and disobedient king, God has provided a way for Ahaz to be delivered. There's a little bit of scholarly debate on this, but if you read chapter 7 and 8 in its entirety, you'll begin to see that there's this woman who is with child, and when this child is born, like we don't know who the woman is. Apparently Isaiah and Ahaz do, but when this child is born and when this child is able to figure out right and wrong, that by that time these enemies will have fallen. That there will be no need for war because these enemies are powerless. So that without even having to go into battle, Ahaz will be victorious. That he will be delivered. In his provision, God is calling Ahaz to trust him because he is merciful and gracious. Isaiah's prophecy also sheds light on God's promises to Ahaz. Ahaz is a king in the Davidic line, meaning he's got ancestry that is King David. And God makes a promise back in 2 Samuel 7 that a king from the line of David will bring peace and harmony to all nations. God is a promise maker and a promise keeper. And again, this call from God through Isaiah to Ahaz should serve as a resounding reminder to trust God and to trust in his promises because he is good and true. The third way that Isaiah's prophecy can be directly tied to Ahaz is in the very presence of God with them. The word here, Emmanuel, means God with us. And again, in what is a great moment, a moment of great fear and worry and doubt, God has not left Ahaz. He's not left him to his own devices. The fact that God is even speaking to Ahaz through Isaiah should be testament to that. That God has sent someone to proclaim, hey, here's the right thing to do. Here's the decision you should make. He has not left him. He has not abandoned him. He has not turned his back on them. God is with them because God is faithful and patient. Interestingly enough, however, when you and I, read this verse, we don't get that. What we get is that this is a proclamation of a child to come, born of a virgin, called Emmanuel. And for you and I, on the side of history where we are positioned, we see that very clearly as a prophecy of Jesus, that Jesus is coming. And Isaiah 7:14 does proclaim that. So what scholars would indicate as a double fulfillment, that there is a fulfillment that is met with Ahaz in the moment of his great fear and worry and doubt, given the context of his surroundings. But there is also a prophecy fulfilled, where it is ultimately fulfilled with the birth of Jesus. And it's actually the same truths that Isaiah leaves Ahaz that are timeless and are still applied to you and I today. Number one, we can trust in God because God provides. Scripture is filled with texts and verses and passages that would indicate of God's great provision for you and for me. Philippians 4:19 says, God will supply all my needs according to his riches and glory. Psalm 23 tells us that because the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. I will have all that I need. In Matthew 6, the Lord's Prayer, Jesus teaches us that God provides for our daily needs. We have peace in John 14. We have comfort in 2 Corinthians 1:4. We have power, love, and a sound mind in 2 Timothy 1:7. But it is with this birth of Jesus that God provides us with our greatest need, a Savior. You and I are not left to our own devices to trust in ourselves or our own efforts or our own plans or our own works to be made right with God. We don't have to place our trust in the fleeting things of this world, things that will disappoint us or let us down. In our moment of greatest need, God provides our greatest need. A perfect, spotless, blameless sacrifice to carry the weight of our sin, to bear the punishment for our rebellion, to die in our place, and to provide rescue and salvation for all who would believe. We can also trust in God because God keeps his promises. God is faithful. He will do what he says he will do. And he's been making promises since all the way back in the garden. Actually, one of the weeks of this series is going to be in Genesis chapter 3, where we get to see a promise from God. He promises Abraham in Genesis 12 that his family would bless the nations. Again, in 2 Samuel 7, we get the promise that a king would come from David's line. We have the promise to forgive sin, to love us, to not fail us, and the promise that one day a Savior would come, born of a virgin. Some of these promises come through in the form of prophecies, events to come. And again, for you and I on this side of history, we can look back through Scripture and see hundreds and hundreds of fulfilled prophecies in the birth of Jesus, the life of Jesus. It's incredible. Like the statistical probability of these things coming to pass is unreal. It's crazy to think about how many very specific, very detailed promises and prophecies have come to pass. All reiterating the same point, that we can trust in God because God keeps his promises. We can also trust in God because God is with us. The word here is Emmanuel, God with us. John says it this way in the prologue of his gospel. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And then down in verse 14 it says, the Word became flesh and dwelt among them. Another modern translation reads like this: the Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. Our housing development is not yet finished, so it's pretty common for us to see, whether it's on our street or surrounding streets, like people moving in. And I just think that's a powerful picture, that Jesus, from glory, has decided to move in the neighborhood. It's incredible. God wrapped himself in flesh and bone. It was not partial revelation. He was fully God and fully man. He lived, he breathed, he walked, he talked, he taught, he cried, he served, he loved, he cared. He was tempted yet did not sin. He died but was not defeated. And while he is not here in physical form, he has not left us. He has not abandoned us. He has not turned his back towards us. He is still with us. But if we're being really honest, it doesn't always feel like that. Oftentimes, things will happen in life and you will think, God, where are you? What are you doing? Where'd you go? Are you not with me anymore? We do feel abandoned and alone. And it's in these moments where one of the strongest emotions that can take over is fear. We can become incredibly fearful. Now, I don't do this every morning. I would like to get to the point where this did happen every morning, but I'm not there yet. But my alarm does go off every morning at 4 o'clock. I don't get up every morning at 4 o'clock, but I want to get there. In the mornings, I do decide to wake up at 4 o'clock. I'll get out of bed, put some clothes on, and I will come here. And I get here to the building, just short of 4:20, 4:30. I'll come in the building. I'll go in the gym. I'll cut the lights on in the gym. And I'll have 40 to 45 minute workout that I'll do, okay? It's really cool having a gym at the church. I'm a fan. So I'll go in here and I'll work out. But I am here on property alone. I don't invite people to join me because that'd be weird. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. If you got a call from me saying, hey, you want to meet me at the church at 4:30, hang up the phone. You shouldn't. That's weird. I don't meet anybody up here. There is video surveillance footage of me by myself running around in that gym like a 12-year-old, okay? It exists. And I'm 32 years old. I got a wife and 2 kids. I'm a grown man. Based on that stat, I'm not. God didn't bless me there. I always got to feel like I got to pray that caveat. But, I'm an adult. And I will be here at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30. And every so often, I will feel like I see something that's not there. And I'll look what's that? Nothing, whatever. And I'll go around and what was that? Who's there? Somebody? No, that's just me. I'm fine. Or I'll hear something, Like something will brush up against the door outside of the gym, and I'll be like, somebody trying to break in this place? No. Like, I just get like that. I'm alone. But if you were to fast forward 12 hours, and it's 4 o'clock p.m., and there's a particular group of high school students that are in this service right now that know I'm talking about them, that will come to my office and go, hey, we're fixing to play basketball. You want to come play? Yeah, let me change. I'll be in there in just a few minutes. And I will go in the same location and do the exact same thing. And I'm not at all like looking around and seeing if I see something or, hey, did you guys hear that? No, you didn't? Okay, all right, it's fine. None of that exists because I'm with somebody. When you're alone, like your mind will just mess with you. It's like play tricks on you. You start thinking things and seeing things, and hearing things like it's just not there. Like it bothers you because you're alone. But at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I've got a handful of other people that are on property, that are in the room, that are playing basketball with me. I don't have those concerns. Presence is a powerful thing. Just being with someone. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're with someone and like you can give them the answers to their questions or you can provide them with some sort of grand whatever. No, sometimes it's just being with someone that matters. Presence is a powerful gift. And it's a gift that we have been given by Jesus. Because of Christ, we can know that God is with us. We do not worship a God or serve a God who is distant, that is far off, that has abandoned his children. He is here. He is now. He is present in this very moment. God is with us. And for the child of God, God is with you. He is with you when you go through that first holiday season without that loved one. He is with you for those still struggling in the aftermath of the recent storms in our community. He is with you when your child is sick and you don't know what to do. He is with you when your finances are a wreck. He is with you when your marriage is struggling. He is with you when that son or daughter or grandson or granddaughter wanders from the faith. He is with you when you are tempted to give into that addiction one more time. He is with you when you are scared and afraid and feel like the only option you have is trusting yourself to solve all of the problems and defeat all of the enemies in this life. You are not alone. God is with you. Well, how do we know? Like, how can we be sure? Like, the whole idea of a sign, like, doesn't seem that crazy in those moments. So give me something. Like, let me know that I can actually trust in this. God has given us a sign. Let me read verse 14 one more time. Therefore the Lord has given you, Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. The sign is Jesus. And this Christmas season, that is who we celebrate. That is who we worship. God with us. With whatever you're going through, don't fear. Don't doubt. Don't worry. Trust in God. A God who provides out of his mercy and his grace. A God who keeps his promises because he is good and true. A God who is with us because he is faithful and patient That is the God we serve, and that is the God we worship. God with us. Let us worship our King today.